Hello, everyone. This is Erik Gibbs with Gambling News, and I'm here today with David Mann, the Chief Commercial Officer at Swintt. And David has been with the company since May of 2019 when he came in as the Business Development Director. Since then, moving to the post of Chief Commercial Officer, he is helping to drive the company's expansion, and also comes equipped with a long history in the gaming industry, having been a deputy manager for William Hill, as well as the head of sales for Spigo, and several other positions in between that have helped to give him the experience and the knowledge needed to keep Swintt on the right path. Now in his current role, he's helping Swintt focus on his core mission, which is to increase player engagement through game design, retention, and innovation. And Swintt is one of the newer companies to enter the North American gaming industry, having spent much of his time in other markets. And we're here with David today to discuss what the company has planned for the future, what it currently has going on, and where he sees iGaming going over the next couple of years. So David, thank you for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you here today.
Yeah, lovely to be here, Erik. Thanks for the invitation.
It's definitely my pleasure. Jumping right in to the questions. You have said on several occasions that mobile is the future. Over the past year, what have been the most important changes in the iGaming industry that are driving mobile alternatives?
Well, I mean, if you look at a lot of markets across the world, more kind of emerging markets within gaming, where land-based and physical operators were the kind of predominant choice for players, there has been a kind of gradual shift towards mobile gameplay as it's become easier. But obviously, with the pandemic, there was a forced closure of casinos, of betting shops worldwide. And the ease of play online, how easy it is for players to transition, that's only accelerated really. And I think that the pandemic is definitely the part in that acceleration. I mean, I think it's an inevitable shift. We see more mature gaming markets where mobile is clearly the king. In some markets, it's upwards of 90% mobile play with some of our partners. Given the advancements in mobile technology and how much easier it is to create really engaging and engrossing content on a tiny device in your hand,
right.
I think it's another inevitability to kind of push this change to mobile first. And we have it with our products as well. And with the live dealer product, it's really optimized for portrait mode, mobile first, taking a real focus on the mobile player, because that is the future. So we want to make sure it continues that way.
Yeah, live dealer is definitely a big deal right now, and it's going to continue to, I think, drive a lot of what happens in the industry for the next several years. Swintt now has its foot in the door in the U.S. Market, and has also recently hired Etienne Azopardi to come in as the operations director to help further advance the company's goals. How are Swintt's plans for expansion taking place right now in the U.S. and in North America in general? Are they going the way things were expected to transpire? Have there been any obstacles that have popped up along the way?
It's the most exciting markets there is, I think, in the industry right now. Everybody's looking towards the US, and we're no different. We're definitely making some movements to get our first partners in the North American market, specifically focused in the US within those regulated states. So we're focusing on getting ourselves into the position to be live in those markets soon. And we're also making partnerships with other strategic partners across the US that will allow us to grow our recognition and our foothold within the market. Even Canada is going to represent even more exciting opportunities. We can see that there's some regulatory shifts there. And it's a big country, and it just seems an inevitability that more and more we're getting more and more regulated markets that are popping up. And it can only be a good thing from the player perspective. But it's going to give us a good foothold and good gauge of which markets we can go in. We can see how our games perform, and then we can still work with our focus of providing localized, recognized content that works with players in certain markets.
It's definitely a fascinating time to be part of the industry. There's a lot going on right now throughout the world, and especially with the U.S. and Canada markets really just now starting to come online. There's nowhere to go but up from here. There's so much potential, and it's going to be very interesting to see how things unfold over the next couple of years. It's not an overnight process by any stretch of the imagination. And there's just so much capability that can be brought into the iGaming industry throughout North America and of course in other regions. But with the fact that both Canada and the US have been untapped for so long, the doors are now wide open. And go ahead.
It's exactly the case. I mean, if you look at the states that have been regulated so far, I mean, there's New Jersey, Michigan, Pennsylvania, and West Virginia for casino. I mean, there's 50 states, I think, in the US. And that's not even touching on the major ones, so it's just going to be a complete, incredible opportunity to work across these states. Now, it's going to be similar to Europe. Each state's going to have its own requirements. Different states, different cultures, different history relating to the gaming industry. But over time, we anticipate that once one state notices the tax revenues they can bring in and the player protection and the opportunity that they can have to leverage online casino, then it makes sense for them to start regulating it and making it something that works for everybody in the state. Sure. And you see it in Europe already. It's country by country. It's nothing's exactly the same in Europe.
Right.
But there will be similarities, and just as there are in Europe, and we see the same people are going to happen in North America as well.
I agree, and that is a good lead into my next question. How has Swintt been adapting to the changes in the industry over the past year, the past 2 years?
I think, looking at the past year, we all know what's went on around the world, especially, the past, 16 months or so with COVID and the pandemic. And, we're already a global business. We've got offices in Asia, North America, all across Europe. And this does present its own challenges. There's time zone issues. There's the fact that people are not all together in one office at one time. But we were already quite used to this remote working and separated offices approach. So I think that we managed to work pretty easily through the pandemic, and it didn't impact on our operations or our functions too badly because we were already working in a similar manner. I think one big absence for me coming from the commercial side is the lack of exhibitions, the lack of conferences, the in-person meetings where you can really build the relationships and then really get to not particularly sell your products, but really understand the customer and what they need from a business to business perspective. So it's much easier when you have a bit more time to spend with the clients in person, and you can really get to know them and really foster that relationship. So it's a shame that we haven't had these exhibitions, but I'm sure not the only one that's looking forward to them returning. There's a couple that may be in the horizon next month. Everybody's just sitting waiting to see how the regulations pan out, and then fingers crossed that everybody can be meeting up in person again next month, and then we can discuss everything that's happened in the past while, and then everything that's going to happen soon as well.
COVID has definitely turned things upside down, and everyone hopes that, for obvious reasons, more than just gaming, that it all goes away, as quickly as possible. So hopefully we can get back on track in the real near future. As you had mentioned earlier, the live dealer casino is rapidly becoming very popular in the iGaming industry. And Swintt introduced a mobile-first live dealer option last December. Despite the obstacles, like you were talking about with lack of conferences and demonstrations, what has been the response to your live dealer segment?
It's been a really positive one. Obviously, there is the challenge of not meeting the operators, but on the flip side of that, we do have the the benefit of being a digital online industry where there's no fundamental need to meet in person, that we can still demonstrate over the internet. So luckily for us, we managed to have a good marketing campaign behind the product initially, bringing some of our operator partners on board, as well as to some new operators. The live dealer vertical in the industry is getting more competitive. There's more and more opportunities there. So we wanted to make sure that when it comes to mobile first live dealer product, that we have the best one out there. And it's been a fantastic response. A lot of analysis and product development has went in before to make sure that we know how to engage with the right customers to give the good players exactly the information they need, the functionality they need, and the ease of use of the product. And yeah, we feel, and our partners have felt that in terms of a mobile product, it's a fantastic live dealer product and one of the best out there.
It is. It's been really well received. And again, when we look back 5 years from now to today and see how much it will have evolved in those 5 years, all of the innovation that's coming down the pipe with Swintt, it's going to be really, really fascinating to see the difference. I mean, we're talking going from 56K dial-up modems to broadband. I mean, there's going to be so much innovation in the space, and Swintt is doing a lot to help lead that motivation, that innovation. So I'm happy to be a part of what's going on. I love seeing everything that's happening, all of the operators and the developers bringing out new content, new ideas, new ways to think about gaming that we would have possibly never have thought of before. Swintt has what you refer to as a play it back program. How is that being received, and where is it currently active? Tell me a little bit about how that program works.
Yeah, we haven't launched the product just yet. It's been something we've been working on for quite some time. But essentially, it's a product that allows players to generate money for charities and good causes in the background of their gameplay, with no detrimental effect on their gameplay. So we're not going to take a portion of players' money and then donate it to charities. This is something that we, as Swintt, and with our operator partners, would look to raise funds for charitable causes together, and then the players would be able to raise this money through their own standard gameplay, no detrimental effect, and allow them to become their own philanthropists to help donate and raise money for good causes. We're hoping to get this product out soon. Keep your eyes peeled, because we're going to have some nice marketing to ramp up really about the product. But it's going to be a huge moment for us, because we have a big focus in sustainability, and we want to be known as this charity first philanthropic game provider that really helps players and operators raise money for good causes. There's no secret that there's a lot of money within the gaming industry, and if we can just start seeing some small percentages of that going to good causes more often, then I think altogether, we can make a really good positive impact in the world. And yes, Swintt Play It Back that's how we're going to steam ahead with this vision.
It's definitely a wonderful concept, and I know it's going to be well received in the industry, both by players and operators. Is it something that you plan on being able to offer everywhere Swintt rolls out to, or is it going to need to be limited because of regulations or what have you?
Yeah, that'll be something we'll need to discuss. Certain jurisdictions, they may have a complete ruling out of anything like this, but we're hoping that we can at least engage directly with the operators and also to the regulators, and then see what we can do. If it's up to us, then we roll this out everywhere, because we want as much positivity to come from this as possible. Sure. And allow players to play it back, to give money back to the charities. So yeah, that's the plan, and we'll see how it comes. But I think that there's already out there quite a few markets that we definitely can launch this product, and we'll be able to engage very quickly with the players, and make some positive strides.
I don't doubt that at all. Like I said, I know it's going to be really well received in the industry. What is the biggest challenge that Swintt is facing right now in the iGaming industry?
I would say it's growing really fast. We hit this thing last year. I think we had 4 people in our office in Malta, and all of a sudden we're running out of space, and we're trying to squeeze tables into every corner. Within COVID restrictions, which obviously means that we don't have as many tables as we'd like in the room. But growing pains, we're spread across a lot of projects, and that means that we're bringing in new people to help us sustain the pace that we've grown at so far. But I think that's quite a challenge, that everybody's working really hard and making sure that everything works. We still have quite a startup mentality, so everybody's chipping in and helping where they can, even if it's not in their direct remit. But I think it's a nice problem to have, is that we are growing, things are going in the right direction. We're moving extremely quickly, and yeah, we just need to bring some more faces in. We have open roles at the moment, and we're looking to bring in the very best in the industry to help sustain this pace.
Nice. That's awesome. Along those same lines, from your point of view, what is the biggest challenge facing the global iGaming industry right now?
I guess I could even apply our growing pains to a lot of the industry. It seems that resource is affecting a lot of companies. If you look at any time, I think every single company is constantly hiring for more and more people. So the faster the industry grows and new markets open up, and you need more specialists into new markets, the language, the culture, the more and more people you need to bring in. So the industry is growing extremely quickly, and yeah, it can be quite staggering sometimes. And there's so much competition for roles and for people, but there's always the overarching there's how would you say, regulations that can come in that can affect new markets, but these are just things that we have to roll with the punches. More regulated markets is great, because then we know that we're going into a somewhat safe, regulated, respectable market. We just have to be able to navigate through the challenges there. But these are to be expected. But yeah, resource, I think, is something a lot of people are struggling at the moment.
Sure, and I think you're absolutely right. Of course, on both counts, regulations are certainly a big obstacle right now, and several countries are changing them almost on a daily basis. There have been several attempts, as you know, to introduce a widespread regulatory framework for the European market, and it's had some difficulty being introduced. I think that having a widespread framework would help a lot, not just for the countries, but obviously for the operators and the players themselves. Europe is a very fluid country. People move around all the time, and knowing that what you're used to playing online in Spain is transferable when you move to Germany, for example, would give players a lot of confidence, and would also save a lot of headache for regulators and operators in the long run. It's going to be interesting to see if that will ever come to fruition. Right now, it certainly doesn't look like it. It's a very optimistic goal, but it might be just out of reach. And the same thing can be said for the Latin American market, and even currently in the US. And the US will always be like that until there is a federal iGaming regulation in place. And that's probably not going to happen. Even if it did, the states would still have the ultimate say in how the markets would be run. We've witnessed that over the past 2 years, when each state comes online with their markets and the differences that they introduce with how they want their markets to be run. There will never be a unified framework in the US. But in Europe and in Latin America, I think it's more plausible. Whether it will happen remains to be seen. But it certainly is challenging for companies like Swintt that have to deal with all of the different nuances and regulatory bodies all over the world to stay on top of it and make sure that they're rolling out new developments that can meet regulatory guidelines and all of the different jurisdictions. So
Yeah,
Swintt
yeah,
has his hands full for sure.
yeah, for sure. I mean, it's interesting that, in Europe, there's a whole host of different laws that apply to every member state within the European Union, and everyone has to follow the same guidelines. But gambling has always been one of these that is exempt from that, I think, because there's a lot of cultural history. The way that the Swedes or the way the Germans approach gambling is completely different to how gambling is approached in another country. It could be Spain, it could be France, Portugal. So I think that the cultural sensitivity around gambling and that does definitely mean that it can be harder to get some kind of one size fits all approach. But from a supplier point of view, yeah, maybe it could be easier for us. But in the meantime, our compliance department are never going to be shy of work as we look to expand into more markets.
Sometimes I think it can keep suppliers and operators awake at night wondering what new regulations are going to pop up tomorrow, because they do seem to change at times, and in certain countries more than others, they change rather quickly. So it's, again, as interesting as it is to see how the market is growing, the iGaming market is growing, it's also sometimes frustrating because it's apparent that some political bodies are not on board and are willing to put their own political aspirations in front of the proper regulations to allow markets to develop, with a common sense approach. But that's a topic for another day. Having said that, where do you see the iGaming space 5 years from now?
Well, I mean, at the speed that it all moves at, it's hard to even get a firm prediction. We're definitely going to have many more regulated markets across the world. Some countries can get their house in order very quickly, within the space of 12 months. Some markets, as you mentioned, they can completely change from day to day. So I'd anticipate, especially looking at the US and how it's kind of gradually opening up, I'd anticipate a lot more regulated markets that presents more opportunities. And that can allow a much more mainstream following for the gaming industry. It can be seen as a much more mainstream entertainment medium across the globe. And then the advancements in technology at the same time, I think, can bring in some really exciting opportunities there. Mobile is just one thing, but how are we going to engage with broadcasting in the future, for example? How intertwined are you going to have broadcasting and watching a live sports game, or any kind of live event? Is there going to be live betting in this? Are you going to do it shared with your peers? Because we're seeing a lot of this kind of communal aspect brought into the industry as well. So yeah, it's quite hard to kind of pinpoint where it's going to go. But I think, so somewhere along those lines, they're considering how the technology is going to go and how people are going to engage with gambling. I think that there's going to be a lot of, intertwining of entertainment, of gambling, of product. And I think that, there'll be some really, really interesting moves. There's some giant companies in the industry, and they're doing some really amazing technological things. And probably in 5 years' time, Swintt's going to be one of them as well. So that's the goal.
Sure
We're going to be there. So, So, there's always these new contenders that come in to upset the balance of power. And that's what we aim to do as well. So 5 years' time, hopefully we'll be sitting somewhere at the top.
I don't doubt that at all. David, that's really all that I had on my list of questions for today. So I'm going to turn it over to you. Is there anything else that you'd like to add or expound upon that maybe we didn't cover?
No, I think we got a good selection of topics today. Following from what I said there, sometimes you need to keep an eye on the smaller companies carefully, because they can come out of nowhere and really shock the industry. We're really hoping to make some big moves over the next 12 months. As Swintt, we're part of the larger Glitnor group, so we have a lot of really good experience and a lot of good minds behind us. And I think that we're going to do some really great things. So definitely for people to keep an eye on us. Hopefully we'll be able to see people at exhibitions again next month, and then onwards from there. So yeah.
Awesome, and I'm sure we'll get there. Maybe starting next month, but certainly over the next year, we should start to see a lot more conferences and events. So I see a lot of great things ahead for Swintt, for the industry in general, and it's going to be really fascinating to see how everything develops over the next couple of years. David, I appreciate your time today. It's been a pleasure speaking with you. I'm going to be watching Swintt very closely to see how things develop, and I know that our viewers will be as well. So again, thank you. I wish you the best. Try to not overheat too much in Malta, and we'll definitely be in touch.
Yeah, cheers, Eric. Thanks very much for having me on.
My pleasure. Take care.
Cheers.